Hi everyone, welcome to Katie Tutors Math. I am Katie. Today we're going to learn how to simplify imaginary numbers with large exponents. So imaginary number, I, that equals the square root of -1. That's our definition. So before we get into the large exponents, let's do a couple small exponents first just to kind of get the hang of it. So if we have I squared, so if we square I, then we want to square -1 as well, the square root of -1. If we square that, that square root and squared cancel out, so we get -1. So this is the important thing that we're going to use in all of our simplifying. So we know I squared equals -1. Let's write that off to the side. If we do that, we're completely simplifying it. There's no more imaginary numbers. All right, let's try I to the third power. So we can rewrite I to the third power as I squared times I. If you remember the exponent rule where you add these two exponents, so we have 1 plus 2 equals 3. And we, of course, don't need that 1 there. So I squared I, and I squared, we already know that's the same as -1. So we'll write -1 times I, and if we multiply that, we would just get -I. Great. How about I to the fourth? So let's once again use I squared in here, since that's how we're going to simplify everything. I squared to the 2. So remember, these we multiply, so 2 times 2 equals 4. So we just rewrote this as I squared squared, and we did that because we know I squared is the same as -1. So -1 squared, that equals just 1. -1 times -1 is 1. Let's do 2 more here. So I to the fifth, we can write that as I squared squared, and let's see, 2 times 2 is 4. We need one more I to get to 5, so we'll just put I right there. And now we have I squared, that's -1 squared times I. So -1 squared is 1, so we have 1I, or just I. Okay, last one for these little exponents. So I to the sixth. So as you can see, there's a pattern here. We're trying to take out an I squared first every time. So we'll take out I squared, and remember we want this to multiply to get to 6. So we'll do 3 there, and that's it. 2 times 3 is 6. So we rewrite I squared as -1 to the third, -1 to the third. 2 of those negative signs will cancel out, and we'll have 1 left. So we have -1. Awesome. So let's move on and do some with larger exponents now. So let's start out with I to the 24. And remember, for all of these, we want to use the fact that I squared equals -1. That's our simplifying superpower here. So with I to the 24th, we want to rewrite this as I squared. And let's see, this would be 12, since 2 times 12 is 24. So I squared is -1 to the 12th. Since that's an even power, all the negatives will cancel out, and we'll just get 1. All right, I to the 101st power. So we'll rewrite this, I squared to the, let's see, we could do to the 50th power. That'll get us to 100, and we'll have 1 I left over. So we'll put that right there. And then I squared is -1 to the 50th times I. Let's see, -1 to the 50th, that's an even number, so that'll simplify to just 1. So we'll have 1I, which equals I. Great, let's do 2 more examples. So I to the 35th power, we can rewrite that as I squared to the, let's see, 17th power. So 2 times 17 is 34, and we'll have 1 I left over. So we can, this step, we always substitute in the -1 for I squared. So we'll have -1 to the 17th times I. Since 17 is odd, there'll be 1 negative left over. So it'll still be -1 times I, or just -I. And one more problem here, I to the 62nd. So we can rewrite this as I squared to the 31st power, since 2 times 31 is 62. I squared is -1 to the 31st still, and since 31 is odd, there'll be 1 negative left over, so it'll be -1. So there you go. And these are actually the 4 answers, excuse me, that you'll get every time. You'll get either a 1, an I, a negative I, or a negative 1 anytime you're simplifying these. Thanks for joining me today, and I hope to see you again soon.